It's time for spooky season book recommendations. Hello and welcome to another bookish video from me, Johanna, me, my dog and books. Grab a cuppa and I'll get ready to share some ghost books, witchy books, vampire books and haunted house books. So you're fully prepped for spooky season reading. Also, just to say that these aren't all horror. There's a mix of cozy, historical fiction, non-fiction, and everything in between. But if you are interested in pure horror books, you can check out my video about 50 plus horror book recommendations. I think I did that last year. I can't remember now. But that will have you sorted for now. Most of these I have read, and there's maybe one or two in each sort of genre, subgenre of spooky season books that I have high on my TBR. Although I was thinking about doing a spooky season TBR video, so let me know if you'd be interested in that. First up, ghost books. Now, some of these book recommendations I'm about to give you could hover between a couple of the kind of groupings, like the ghost ones could be maybe haunted house or whatever. But anyway, I had to separate them. First up is, I think it was one of my top 3 books of, if not last year, the year before, and I will still shout about this book. It is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. Wow, this is a chonk. Don't let that put you off. It doesn't feel like it. I didn't want it to end. And it's set in the sort of Jim Crow era of Florida, where Robert Stephen Jr., who's a young black boy, gets sent to a segregated reform school after being in a scuffle with a white boy, for which none of it was his fault, but of course, yes, of course he gets sent to the reform school. He goes to this school and it's an utter chamber of terrors. Not only like in the real life part of this, I don't know why I put that, because of the young boys that are sent there and the horrors of racism and injustice they face, but also because it is literally haunted by the ghosts of the boys before. And that is where the story comes together. Don't go in knowing any more than that. So obviously this has ghosts, there's paranormal element, but it feels more like almost true crime, not in a kind of salacious way, but because this school, etc., is actually based, I think, on the author's great uncle or their great uncle's experience of being sent to a reformatory school like this. And it has such great societal commentary, although utterly heartbreaking, about racism, child abuse, the Klan, segregation. Honestly, the whole thing is freaking terrifying in a horror way. But not because it's been written as horror, it's because this stuff happens. Maybe not the paranormal bit, but you know, I'll leave that up to the ghost hunters and or skeptics. And no word of a lie, this was a 5-star read and it kept me on tenterhooks the entire time. Then there's a classic. Of course, I'm going to give you some spooky season recs that involve Stephen King. Now, there are many that I could recommend that maybe have a ghostly element, but I've decided to go for one of my faves, and still a classic, is The Shining. So obviously we follow Jack Torrance, who takes his wife and son to, oh my God, why have I forgotten the name of the hotel? Please remember, don't need to Google it. I had to Google it because my memory is absolutely abhorrent. The brain fog is real. It was the Overlook Hotel, of course. Right, so he takes his family there. They're going to be there for the winter. He's decided, as a recovering alcoholic, that he's going to spend, I don't know why I said because this is something you do as a recovering alcoholic. It's not, but he decides he's going to write a book because he's got a book in him, and his son Danny, just to let you know, I didn't have to Google that, I remembered it. Oh my God, my memory's so bad. Anyway, his son Danny has what we call the shining. He's able to see things, as does the janitor guy, who he sees this within Danny. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but if you've seen the movie, you get the gist. If you haven't, even if you have actually, I read the book after I'd seen the movie years ago, right? There's so much more in the book that explains so much more about the movie than you ever expect. It's also way darker, more twisted and unhinged. So they shut down for the winter as they become the kind of keepers of the hotel over the kind of winter period when it's off season and they don't have any guests. Weird goes down, like creepy, scary twins, weird people in like masks, the woman in the bath. Jack loses his mind. He's more terrifying, honestly. One of my favourite films, still one of my favourites. And I say it goes within ghost stories. It's because there are the ghosts of the Overlook Hotel, the ghost, the spirit of the hotel. This is all what's driving, or is it? It is. This is all what's driving the weird visions and the behaviours of Jack, who absolutely spirals into a level of manicness that makes him really dangerous. I feel like I nearly told you the end there because I feel like everybody has either read or seen The Shining, and that's not the case. If you haven't, do it. It's a classic. It's the kind of classic that I would definitely read, compared to other, more stereotypical classics, says me. Not that I hate on classics. Anyway, another story. Then we have The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. Now, technically, I've put this under Ghosty Books, where it probably could be like a haunted house, like haunted motel story. It's a story that is also told over two timelines. We've got 1982, where Viv takes on a kind of a night clerk job at the Sundown Motel because she wants to save money to move to New York. She soon starts to realise that there's some creepy weird shit happening in the hotel. It's harbouring some dark secrets and she's determined to find out what they are. Then we're like 35 years later in 2017 and we follow her niece, I think her name's Carly, who arrives in the area where her aunt was to investigate her disappearance many years ago. She ends up taking a job in the same motel for the reason to try and get figuring out what the heck happened, but all the eerie stuff from back then starts to, happen to Carly as well. So we have Viv and Carly's POV. Amazing. I love multiple POVs. I love dual timelines. And I was gripped from the very start, especially because we start with Viv's story in 82 where crazy stuff is happening. Ghostly paranormal stuff, maybe. Full of suspense, amazing character development, and honestly, I was gripped till the very end. It's the kind of book that I would gift to people that are looking for a good ghosty haunted house type story for spooky season. Plus, I really do enjoy Simone St. James's writing. Now for another classic, it is Amityville Horror by J. Anson, based on a true story, apparently. This is a classic, first published in 1977, and it's 28 days of terror in a house haunted by evil. Haunted by evil spirits. So the Lutz family moved to their dream home. I think it's 1975. But it's the same home that I assume this guy is real. Ronald DeFeo murdered his family a year earlier. That included his parents and brothers and sisters. Let me just Google that guy. Oh my god, yeah! Ronald Joseph DeFeo Jr. was an American mass murderer who was convicted for the 1974 killings of his father, mother, and two brothers and two sisters in Amityville, New York. Now, I must have known this, and maybe I just have forgotten from reading the book and seeing the movie. Well, anyway, this is based on a true story. So, of course it's true. How did I not remember that? So basically, a psychic phenomenon follows this family in this house, possibly due to the prior incidents that happened in the house, or should you say mass murder unaliving. And wow, it's of the ilk of the Exorcist and the Omen sort of vibes, but absolute classic horror. I would like to read this as a reread it, because I actually You know, that way I actually don't remember. I mostly remember the movie, which I still watch, still love. And I'm like, did I ever properly read the book, or do I think? Do you know that way that happens? And I'm sure I read it years ago. I've got an old copy that I managed to get a hold of a couple of years ago, so I want to get my head stuck into that again. A reread, I think, is coming up. Then, of course, there's A Woman in Black by Susan Hill. This is a classic gothic horror ghost story. So we have an up-and-coming lawyer called Arthur who's heading to, what's the name of the estate? An isolated causeway in an English moor to settle the estate of Eel Marsh House because the lady who lived there has died. So he goes, he's taken there, but he picks up pretty quickly that local people are terrified of said house and the woman that lived there before she died because it emanates, you know, bad luck and tragic things that happen and something that comes up on a regular basis, possibly from the causeway or the home, and there's something there, and he's there on his own. I think he's got like a fiancé back at home who gets referred to. Actually, in the movie, the movie adaptation's great, but the start and the ending is very different to the book. So even if you've seen the movie, you can still go into the book because, you know, it has pretty different. It's particularly the ending is very different. I mean, in the house, there's a deserted nursery, a creaky rocking chair, shadows. I mean, the actual woman in black, terrifying if and when you're exposed to seeing her. I also highly recommend the theatre adaptation of this book. It is phenomenal and utterly terrifying. I screamed out loud. And there's the horse and the causeway and so much. It's atmospheric, it's eerie, it's everything you want in a classic gothic horror. Now here's maybe it's more middle grade than YA. It's City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, aka V.E. Schwab. And this one's set in Edinburgh, and I think it's a series, so I've only ever read book 1 so far, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's described as perfect for fans of like Miss Peregrine's, what is that one called? Home for Peculiar Children. So we follow Cass, and ever since the time that she almost drowned, like I think she very briefly, like maybe did, then just didn't, like she had a moment of, ever since then she can see the dead as well as the living. Kind of, she sees the dead almost like the living. You know, to the point her best friend is even a ghost. Her parents are also the inspectors who like have a TV show exploring haunted places and phenomenons. So they are on a trip to haunted Edinburgh to shoot the TV show. Cass goes along, and obviously because of the historic hauntedness of Edinburgh, she's only exposed to loads of dead people. I see dead people. Is that the line? Then she also meets a girl called Lara who also sees dead people. And she is on a mission to, you know, help the dead move on and move to the right place instead of hovering about in the real world, kinda. I loved the setting in Edinburgh. I loved Cass as a character. She was lovely. If you're a big fan of V.E. Schwab, you'll also adore her writing. It was a spooky, fun, fast-paced story. And Cass and her bestie, the ghost, Jacob, are just a delightful duo to read about. It's eccentric, cute, dark, and ghostly, of course. So hopefully you find a ghosty book recommendation in there for you. If you have any, let me know in the comments. And just as a reminder, if you want to get any more book recs or watch any cozy reading vlogs, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and we'll keep chatting in the comments about all spooky books. Next up, Witchy Books. Firstly, I'm going to tell you about one that I literally just finished today. It is In the Defence of Witches, The Legacy of the Witch Hunts and Why Women Are Still on Trial. An amazing non-fiction book by Mona Chollet. It's translated from French and does an amazing job of looking at the history of the witch hunts and trials and how that's still hugely prevalent in different guises in 21st century modern day misogyny. She explores how women were hunted and identified as witches, how they were persecuted, and then starts to explore how women, both for their age, for their life choices, for example, choosing not to have children, choosing not to get married, even like choosing to be single, choosing to let their hair go grey, leads them to being persecuted in, albeit not necessarily some of the abhorrent, torturous ways in the West. Who knows elsewhere, as witches were centuries ago, but how to this day women's life choices and body are controlled by men. It is anger-inducing. It is feminist, fabulous feminist non-fiction that I think is a necessary read any time of year, but particularly when the witchiness is high stakes consumerism and we're being sold back. And I say this while I also adore witchy stuff and I'm aware of it, but I know what witchiness means and where it starts from. It's part of the patriarchal oppression of women. This was phenomenal and I highly recommend it, especially on audio too. Then from darkly raging feminism non-fiction to some cozy, like a big giant hug of witchy books. It's the two books from Lucy Jane Wood, both of which are standalone, but they're kind of a similar ilk, but totally standalone. You don't need to read one then the other. It's Rewitched, which is currently out in paperback and came out last year, and then Uncharmed, which is recently out and is only out in hardback. If you get physical books, also available in audio and ebook. In Rewitched, we have a main character called Belle. Belle is a witch working at a bookstore. You can just see the beautiful bookish combos here that are delightful. She's struggling, like many women, to balance their personal life, their work life, and their magic when she faces a summons from the Coven to say, Belle, if you don't start using your magic properly and start using it, you're going to lose it. She must find a way to reignite her magical abilities with the help of her newfound friend and charming watchman. This is a beautiful story with an amazing setting. We've got witchcraft. It's not heavy on the romance. It's a little bit there, but it's not heavy, which is something I adore in cozies when it's not so just all about the romance. And it's really a wholesome story about reigniting faith in yourself and belief and self-confidence in you as an individual, as well as like newfound family and friendships and sense of belonging. The characters are wonderful. It's a delightful story. It gives you all the autumn vibes. It's perfect for spooky season, especially if you don't like being absolutely terrified, which I do, but I also like the world of cozy, magical, witchy vibes too. Then we have Uncharmed by the same author. In this one, we follow a character called Annie. She is perfect, a perfect picture of witchiness. She is delightful and her life is impeccably witchy and full of very high standards, and she's pretty much got her shit together. Like it says in the blurb, she's practically perfect in every which way. But then she is tasked with mentoring a troubled teenage witch to help her get her powers under control, and thus her life and that of the teenage witch she is mentoring is thrown into utter chaos. It is similarly to Rewitched, delightfully spooky, about found family, about the power of being a woman, and it's about harnessing your power and understanding yourself and being able to control your own. You know, it seems like it's almost a analogy for like your thoughts and feelings, albeit it's all magic and powers. And Maeve, who is the teenager's journey with Annie, is just delightful to read. Utterly cozy, witchy delight. Then we have The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I read this a couple of years ago and it still sticks with me. This one is about witches who, for centuries, have controlled the climate. And each of the witches are assigned to their season of birth, be it spring, summer, winter, autumn, but their control is faltering and the atmosphere becomes more erratic. So all hope lies with Clara, who is an Everwitch, and she has like a rare magic that is tied to every season. Honestly, I went into this book relatively unknowingly about, other than it's been about witches and climate and nature, so I was like, that sounds like my thing. And I was blown away. I mean, it was absolutely my bag. We're talking about women witches who are controlling our climate and the seasons, despite what humans are doing to it. So very much poignant of the moment right now and the moments of, recent years where we've done such damage to our climate, and then witches are just trying to help control it so it doesn't become an absolute dumpster fire. Kind of wish this was a true story, so witches were just saving us from the climate crisis we are experiencing. But anyway, that's a side point. I don't believe they are. And there's some amazing characters. There's obviously Clara, who's the main character, but Clara also has a really good bestie called Paige, and she's absolutely badass. And again, I've probably, if you've seen any of my videos before, I'm not a big romance reader, but there is a little romance that Clara has, and I was cool with it. It was actually really nice. I was so absorbed in this book, I flew through it in about a day on audio. It is the perfect seasonal read, and it's one that combines the current challenges of society right now in respect of our climate and the fantastical element of witches being in charge and controlling nature on our behalf. Oh, I wish. The next is YA, and it's by an author I absolutely love. Mostly she tends to write non-fiction. This is her first fiction, I think. And it's The Burning by Laura Bates. Laura Bates is the founder of Everyday Sexism and books about why men hate women. She's an internationally renowned feminist, and her books are just outstanding. I would recommend them all. In this book, she obviously is dealing with the subject of feminism through fiction. It's set in modern day, but with a nod to almost the equivalent of modern day witch hunting. And the line that describes this book is, "A rumour is like fire, and a fire that is spread online is impossible to extinguish." Anna has moved away with her mother to a new place and a new school so they can forget and almost put the past behind them. Anna needs a fresh start after all the harassment she was subjected to after what happened to her before, where stuff was shared about her online. But as she enters her new school, whispers start again about what happened to her, whilst at the same time, Anna tries to ignore all this by absolutely immersing herself in the story of a local woman called Maggie who was accused of witchcraft in the 17th century. So a perfect combination of where it's looking at her escapism through modern day witch hunting, about online slut shaming, online shaming, and just how the parallels of those stories go together. It's about, content warnings, but it's about slut shaming, revenge porn, Scottish witch trials, bullying, so we can get the gist. It was amazingly written, and I think it's a really good young adult book that explores the parallels between centuries-old witch hunting and modern-day misogyny. Then we have Her Majesty's Royal Coven series by Juno Dawson. So although the fantasy is not my go-to genre, this was one that felt really accessible. It's technically deemed, I think, urban fantasy, and it follows a secret government run by a coven of witches tasked with protecting the world from supernatural threats, right? So it does feel like it's got that modern day element, and there's so many. It's hugely diverse, as you expect from Juno Dawson, and has a lot of amazing social commentary. It's very satirical as well. It blends friendship, identity, power struggles, politics, as you can imagine, and it does it in such an astute and satirical, funny, darkly funny way. So fundamentally a series about, and I think I've only got to book 3. I've not finished the series. That is a confession. I am a series incomplete or I'm terrible. But I will finish this one. But it's basically about these witches fighting dark forces, possibly misogyny, patriarchy, and every non-inclusive groups of people. But while they're also fighting those dark forces, they're also struggling to get to grips with what it means to navigate and change, loyalty, and what it means to belong. Highly recommend it. And Juno Dawson is utterly awesome. Now here's one that's on my TBR and I really want to read it. It's called The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And oh my god, I've been told if I like Rewitched and Uncharmed, it's of a similar cozy, witchy ilk. And also, like, the main character has the best name ever, Mika Moon. She's one of the last known witches in Britain, apparently, but she hides her magic. She keeps her head down, she stays away from other witches, she's just not getting involved in that malarkey. She just really doesn't want to draw attention to herself. Anyway, a mysterious message arrives, which is she's begging her to travel to a remote place called Nowhere House, where she's been asked to teach 3 young witches how to control their magic. How delightful does this sound? It breaks all of Mika's rules about just keeping your head down, hiding your magic, not getting involved with other magicians, witches, and she goes. And so I am told that this is a story of cozy, charming, found family, about the sense of belonging, but there's some trepidation, I am led to believe. Anyway, if you've read this, or I think there's one that's similar, I don't know if it's like book 2 of this one, that obviously I want to read too, but I need to read this one first. If you've read it, let me know in the comments, because I feel like I need to get it and read it immediately. It is prime witchy reading season. Then there is another cozy witchy book, which is Cackle by Rachel Harrison, my first Rachel Harrison. And I keep buying Rachel Harrison's books since then, and still to read more of them. I haven't, because that's my bookworm life challenge. I have that I buy books that I desperately want to read and I haven't read them yet. But Cackle is utterly delightful. Like, it's cozy horror. Maybe some of the magic is a wee bit like pushing the boundaries of being a bit dark and a bit, but it's hard to put it in the pure horror. Like, if you in the way that maybe Hocus Pocus is horrifying because they want to like consume children in that way. So we follow Annie, and she's just out of a long-term relationship, which you're kind of like, well done, Annie. It sounded like you needed to end that. But she is utterly heartbroken, right? And the only way she's like, and how do I get over this? So she basically uproots, changes, moves job and into a completely different town. So it gets immediate small cozy town vibes. And she becomes and strikes up a friendship with one of the town residents called Sophie. But it appears other town residents are a wee bit scared of Sophie because she's like got witchy magical abilities. But Sophie just she really likes Annie, and she just wants Annie to get over this heartbreak and to stop pining for this ex. In her head, Annie's like, if only I could realise what he's missed and come back to me. And Sophie's like, no, you need to get over this. And she starts to think of maybe how her powers might help her do this. Basically, you as a reader and Sophie just want Annie to start loving herself for herself, and you're rooting for her the whole time. You're like, you're more than this relationship. You need to love you, Annie. Called Ralph. And if you know, you know. And if you know, put the emoji in. I don't want spoilers. Although would it be a spoiler? It wouldn't be. But Ralph, too cute. So this is spooky, menacing, and 1,000,000% delightful. And now here are 2 that I have on my TBR, not just one. I have got 2. Now there's the Book of Witching by CJ Cooke, which I just picked up from the library. I mainly want to read this because it looks like gothic historical fiction, but also because the lovely Carly at the Pastel Bookshelf absolutely adores this author. And I've only just recently discovered that she's Scottish, and this book is set in Scotland. Glasgow, to be exact. So I think there's 2 timelines in this, and it starts where Clem, who is the mother of Erin, gets a horrible phone call that pretty much says your daughter Erin is currently unconscious in hospital after an incident that happened while she was hiking in the Orkney Islands, which is a set of islands in the north of the north coast of Scotland, Scottish Islands, which pretty much left her boyfriend dead and her best friend missing. So absolute tragedy. When Erin wakes, she appears to not recognise her mother, not knowing her name, and she's convinced that she is someone called Nynx, NYX. And so Erin's mother travels to the scene of the incident and goes down a rabbit hole of the history of the Orkney Islands, following the story of a woman accused of witchcraft and murdered 4 centuries ago. And just to point out, wrongly accused of witchcraft, as most women were. I mean, how good does this sound? It sounds amazing. And I actually think that Clem and Erin's story is based in Glasgow, and the other story is set in the Orkney Islands, Scottish Islands. And I'm just like, this sounds fantastic. So I'm so excited about it. I haven't even read it, that I've bought tickets to go and see this author and another author, Bridget Collins, in a couple of weeks. Like, because I'm that convinced I'm going to love it. Plus, Carly loved it, and I trust her recommendations. The other witchy book high on my TBR, Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery by Brom. Now, this cover and the amount of booktubers that I've seen recommend and absolutely hail this book as wonderful witcheriness has had this on my radar for a good couple of years. It took me ages to get hold of it online, and eventually it took weeks to come, because I think it came from the States when I ordered it. So I have got a physical copy, and it's like nice and square and floppy, and I'm itching to read it. And the fact is, I know little to nothing about it, right? Other than I think it's kind of gothic and set in New England, but I did check out the blurb, and it's about a very spirited English woman who arrives, I think it's her name, Abatha, and she arrives in a Puritan colony, and she's betrothed to an absolute stranger, of course, but she becomes widowed pretty quickly after the nuptials because her husband mysteriously dies, and so she's left all alone in this patriarchal society. And you know what that meant back in the day. She has to fight for her freedom before, she's deemed it the consequences of being a witch, because how dare she be a woman on her own. And this is where in the story enters Slewfoot, a powerful spirit of antiquity who's been newly awakened. And he's trying to find his own role in the world. Is he a healer or a destroyer? Protector or a predator? As villagers start to die off, whispers start, and the chants are around witch. They have to determine who they are and how to survive in a world where they're likely to be hunted down and hung for dabbling in the dark arts. It sounds very gothic, and I've seen people write, if the Crucible and Pan's Labyrinth had a baby, this would be the book. So I'm kind of here for that, in all honesty, and I just want to delve into that world. If you've read it, let me know. Now from witches to vampires. Is that a vampire? I don't know. Sounded like the guy from Sesame Street. I'll stop now. Vampire books. We obviously have the classic Dracula. I'm not going to go into that one. You know what it is. By Bram Stoker. Maybe check it out. The first one I'm going to start with is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. It is a wonderful book. I adore Grady Hendrix, to be fair. He writes books that are an amazing combination of horror and humour. And in this one, and he sets them in different eras where you feel like you're having a bit of a throwback. So this one's set in the 90s in the South, where I think it's Patricia's the main character. I can't remember. And, she's stuck in that 90s Southern gal world of being a housewife and a mother and, living to the expectations of her slightly misogynistic husband. And she finds joy in her book club that read true crime. A whole group of women who read true crime books. But then there's a newbie in the town. And this newbie, slightly dark, handsome stranger, starts to create some speculation in her book club because children go missing. And the book club are like, is this guy Brad Pitt, or frickin' Jeffrey Dahmer. And so Patricia starts her own investigations. Now, all the guys, all the husbands are like swimming, and he's like, he's such a cool guy. And some of the women are swooning over this new stranger guy. And Patricia's like, there's something not right here. And she's about to find out what's going down and what's threatening their little community. This is a book that had me laughing and gasping in slight horror. There's a scene in the attic, and if you know, you know. All the elements in this book, we've got the white picket fences, the perfect southern life, and did I say a book club who read true crime, and a group of women who are being, you know, just absolutely held down by the patriarchy and the roles that they're supposed to live, but they're not going to do that. They're the ones that are... Patricia is the one that is going to suss out what the heck is happening with this new guy in town and what threat he poses to their communities. Children go missing and stuff, and wild stuff happens. I laughed and winced. It was the ultimate... It's actually still one of my favourite Grady Hendrix books, although there is another that I'll mention. I think there's maybe two others that come in the next category, haunted houses. Then we have Woman Eating by Claire Kohda. This is a modern take on vampires from a very much needed women's perspective. It's the kind of book that I went into not knowing much, and I recommend you do the same. So all you need to know is the main character is called Lydia, and she's very hungry. And she's desperate to try all the Japanese food that her father liked and loved, as well as like bubble tea and everything in the little London town that she's living in. But she can't. The only thing she can digest is blood. And it turns out they try to source fresh pig's blood because, you know, she doesn't want to be vampire-y. Is much harder than you think, especially living away from home, away from her mother in London. I don't know how easy pig's blood is to get, but she can't get it. I found this just an utterly, strangely captivating vampire story that's not really a vampire story. I mean, it is, but it's not. Come here for the best book reviews ever. In the fact that it doesn't take you down the usual vampire-y tropes. Lydia and her mother are vampires, so they're not human, yes, but they kind of are trying to live like humans. They want to be normal. It's really a book that is showcasing the struggles of womanhood, and through the lens of food and eating, it manages to explore identity, societal expectations, and personal growth, which the author does through a really unusual angle, which is that of the main character being a vampire. And Lydia, honestly, she's such a wonderful, intriguing character, and you absolutely feel for her. She has this innate desire and want to have this connection with her father, which she just can't because of who she is. She really wants to understand her Asian identity and feel reciprocal love. The storytelling style was beautiful, and it's one of the most unique vampire books I've ever read. Then here's another classic. It's a little bit different to the movie. The movie I do love. It's I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. So we have this main character. If you've not seen the film, here's also the premise. It's roughly the same, except there's things in the film that aren't in the book, obviously, because of when it's set and yada yada. So Robert is the last living man on Earth, but he's not alone because night hunting vampires, and they're very hungry, and he's good food. So by day, he's a hunter, Robert that is. He's, you know, navigating through the undead and trying to take them out, while by night he's barricading himself in the house and praying for the day. It's a very short story. It has everything you would expect from a classic sort of vampire book. And to be fair, I did watch the movie I Am Legend with Will Smith in it, who has an amazing dog. There isn't a dog in the book, by the way. Which is probably just as well, because dog story is lovely in the film until it's not. So I read the book after I'd seen the film. I still really enjoyed the book. I thought it was really well written, and the ending is quite different to the ending in the movie. So I would say you get some stuff from the same with like The Shining, and a few other classics that I've mentioned here, where you may have seen the film but not read the book. That will not spoil the premise. I thought it was really, really good. And it's just a perfect classic. Have a look when it was first written. No way. 1954? Bloomin' heck. So you do get books that say I Am Legend and other stories. I Am Legend itself, I think, is only 162 pages. So it's less than 200 pages. So you would read it easily, and like I read it really quickly. You could probably get it on audio now too. Then Got to mention Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Absolute classic. It's a chonk, but it's a good one. And I actually only read this one maybe 5 years ago for the first time. There has been many adaptation, of which I've heard mixed things, I think. So a very short synopsis. We have small town vibes. The small town of Salem's Lot. Thousands of miles away from this small town, we have two terrified people. A man and a young boy who still share secrets from the clapboard houses and the tree-lined streets of Salem's Lot, and they have to terrifyingly return to Salem's Lot to face the unspeakable evil in that town. That's all you need to know going in. This is one of my I have many favourite Stephen Kings, but this is up there. I've actually read it twice now, I think. It's atmospheric. We have a creepy house, so again, could be haunted house, but you know. And it's a town where something weird is definitely going on. It's told in a very traditional gothic feeling vampire storytelling feeling. That's how it felt, and I felt like in true King style, he writes amazing characterization. His character development is great. But also like the whole, like he does small towns, you know, like Maine, etc. But you get immersed in the whole premise of this town. It's fundamentally at its core a story about good versus evil and how good can prevail. Go in knowing that only and have an epically good time. Then we have a Rachel Harris that I have on my TBR that I really want to read because it's vampire-y. It is So Thirsty. So in this book, we follow a main character called Sloane who is dreading her kind of upcoming birthday because she just doesn't want to be reminded about getting old, right? And she just wants it to pass by. But her husband surprises her with a birthday weekend getaway. Not with him, but with her bestie. I mean, delightful gift. Her bestie, but also troublemaker extraordinaire, Naomi. Sloane is foreseeing a weekend of, you know, chilled vibes, cozy robes, you know, like spa-like vibes. No, that's not what our friend Naomi has in plan, because Sloane is completely avoidant of her husband's infidelities and she just wants to disappear from it all. And Naomi is like, we're taking a getaway and we're gonna have FUN. She wants Sloane to live it up. So Naomi organises like a big night out with a bunch of strangers, like my absolute ultimate nightmare. This night out takes a horrifying turn, which fundamentally changes Sloane and Naomi's lives forever. So thirsty, wink wink, nudge nudge. You can imagine who these strangers are. That's all I need to know, and I'm here for it because I love Rachel Harrison's writing. I'm hoping for some vampire hilariousness. You know, it seems to be a book about female friendship and like cozy horror, a bit like Cackle, so I'm absolutely here for it. If you've read it, let me know in the comments. Now, if you're still here and listening to these recommendations, thank you. You might need another tea break. But I'm on to the last section, which is Haunted House book recommendations. Now, I need to start this one with a classic. Actually, I have a plan on rereading it really soon because I'm going to join an online horror book club about this, and it is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Now, this will be like the fourth or possibly fifth reread of this book for me. In short, if you've not read the book or watched the movies or the different movie adaptations or TV adaptations, recommend most of them, to be honest. This is a gothic classic about a group of people who are, I'm sure they're invited to stay at this sinister old mansion by Dr. Montague, an old occult scholar who's basically looking for evidence of, you know, hauntings and the like. So a whole series during their stay of strange occurrences take place, which starts to really blur the lines between supernatural and psychological. It does this really eerie exploration of fear and madness. This is the classic. This is the Haunted House book. Shirley Jackson writes atmospheric, the kind of book that just gives you the goosebumps, and honestly I'll keep rereading it as many times. It
stands the absolute test of time. Then there's one of my, well, it was actually my first and still my ultimate favourite Riley Sager book. It's Home Before Dark. Not only is it a haunted house book, it is a book within a book about a book. It's a story about Maggie, who 25 years earlier, with her mum and dad, they lived in a house called Bainbury Hall, a rambling Victorian estate in the Vermont woods. But 3 weeks after moving into it, they flee in the middle of the night, which her dad later recounts in a non-fiction book called House of Horrors. No, the kind of book that was almost like Amityville horror, apparently. So it had a similar mix of popularity and utter skepticism. Now, today, Maggie is the restorer of old homes, so you know where this is going to go. But Maggie's dad dies and she inherits this house. She is also a complete skeptic and doesn't believe in anything that was written in her father's book. So she goes back to prepare the house for Salem, and that's all you need to know. This was the perfect haunted house book. It had all the creepiness I was looking for. It also had a story about a book within a book, because there's bits of the book in the book that her dad wrote, that is. It is a page-turnery, twisty thriller that kept me guessing chapter after chapter, and I never guessed what was happening until never, because I only knew what was happening when I got to the last page, and I was like, wow. It is my favourite Riley Sager, and if anyone wants to ever dabble in checking out this author, I would always say try that one first. It's still my favourite. I do love a lot of his books, but this one was top tier for me. Then one of two Grady Hendrix that I'm going to mention in the haunted house section, which is How to Sell a Haunted House. In this story, we follow a brother and sister. There's Louise, who, when she finds out her parents have died, she is dreading having to go back to the family home and basically clear it out to get ready to sell it. She just doesn't have the best memories, and she's like, she knows the house is going to be filled to the rafters of her father's academic work and her mother's obsession with puppets and dolls. The puppets and dolls is something I would be terrified about. And most of all, she doesn't want to have to deal with her brother Mark, who still lives in the same hometown, gets fired job after job, and is very envious of her own success. So they have a great relationship, as you can imagine. But she needs his help to be able to clear out the house and get it up for sale, but some houses don't want to be sold. Now, fundamentally, this book has one of my favourite horror tropes, which is dolls, creepy puppets, creepy dolls and clowns, right? It is up there. And so I was absolutely here for that. But Grady also is more than that. He tackles sibling rivalry and the complications of sibling relationships, especially in the aftermath and the death of parents. He does that so well in this story. I mean, from the outset, both brother and sister seem absolutely unlikable characters, but you start to learn why as you learn more about their stories. The house is absolutely filled with stuffed dolls and those stuffed and porcelain dolls, as well as a really creepy squirrel nativity set. If you've read this book, oh dear God, squirrels, and if not, come back to me when you have. No, and as a child of the Child's Play era, I am here for possessed doll action, right? It's absolutely in my wheelhouse. It's not for everyone though, so if that's not your thing, probably don't read this book, but I adored it. This book maybe isn't quite as humorous as some of his other books, that combination of humor and horror, but it's not devoid of humor. It has humor, but he tends to balance the story about brilliant horror tropes as well as the complexity of sibling relationships that I thought he did really well in this book. And if you're looking for creepy dolls and haunted houses, this is perfection. The next is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman, the author of Bird Box, which I love, by the way, too. This I read last winter, and I loved it. It's a story about 8-year-old Bella and is narrated by Bella, who is tormented by a malevolent entity who she calls Other Mummy. I mean, she's terrifying. Like, the Other Mummy is terrifying. Now, Other Mummy is persistently asking Bella to go inside her heart, to let her inside her heart. But as the entity grows stronger and more terrifyingly insistent, Bella realizes that her family's safety hinges on her response to Other Mummy, especially as cracks start to appear in her parents' marriage. The whole narration of the book being through Bella's point of view is just amazing and made it even creepier. The premise of Other Mummy is utterly terrifying. It's like the absolute stuff of nightmares. And I love Malerman's writing. It's sharp, immersive, and at times utterly fills you with dread, which was the whole point of this story. You're just waiting for that. You just see this entity that's like trying to almost capture, in a way, Bella, and you're like absolutely rooting for little Bella, but also like hoping her parents get their shit together, because this entity is just waiting to pretty much steal their child away. And it's not just your standard haunted house horror. Obviously this is an entity that they feel is in the house, but they maybe realise it's more connected to the daughter than the house. TBC. But it's more than that. It delves into complex family relationships, and parental dynamics is what's at the core of this story. It's an unsettling slow burn, but in a good way, because it left me with the chills after reading it. Just that creepy level of the that's the feelings it gave me, and I felt it for a wee while after it. I'd also I don't know if it's on, I think, yes, I part read it on audio as well, and highly recommend. The next one is the second Grady Hendrix I was going to recommend, and it's Horror Store. Firstly, the book is beautiful. It's like an IKEA catalogue, and that's because the whole story is set in a haunted IKEA that's not called IKEA, but just something very similar. It is basically IKEA. I mean, it's effectively an IKEA rip-off store called Orsk. So something weird is happening in Orsk. We'll just call it IKEA because that's the easiest. IKEA, that's how you're supposed to say it, I think. Not IKEA, IKEA. Anyway, strange stuff is happening, because every morning when staff turns up, there's like broken furniture, smashed wardrobes, and the likes, and sales are down. Security cameras reveal nothing, and the store managers are panicking. Anyway, to unravel what the heck's going on, 3 employees volunteer to do the 9-hour dusk till dawn shift. So they'll patrol the showrooms, investigate strange sights and sounds, and they'll encounter horrors that defy imagination. Now, I read this book with a combination of in print, having the physical book, and the audiobook that someone recommended to me, because the audio is outstanding. You have all the kind of sound production and the eeriness, as well as, obviously, because the book is so masterfully laid out, a bit like an IKEA catalogue. It's quite a unique reading experience if you're privileged enough to be able to do the combo of physical and audio. Not everybody is. And that's absolutely okay. Whatever way you read it, you will have a great experience. He does his usual, which is a brilliant combination of horror and humour. But in true Grady Hendrix style, he weaves in amazing social commentary about capitalism, consumerism, the retail workers and the lower paid employees in that sector, corporate power, which makes this story not only haunted house IKEA vibes, but absolutely epic in its commentary about the evils of capitalism. It was so good and clever on so many levels. Then we have We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clure. I mean, I gave this book 5 stars out of 5 stars when I read it in December. Honestly, it still sits with me. So, it's described as the movie Get Out meets Parasite, which started as a Reddit hit, I believe, and then became a story and has been optioned for movie adaptation. So we have a young queer couple who can't believe their luck when they manage to acquire this kind of house that they're going to do over. They've just got an old house in a picturesque neighbourhood. Can't believe their luck. And so they're turning it over, they're renovating, and one day, as they're working in the house, I think it's Eve who's there when this family arrive at the door. Her wife Charlie is working away somewhere, and this family turn up and go, "Hi!" Now, bear in mind there's a storm a-brewing, right? They're like, "Hi, I used to live here, and I wondered if I could bring my family in to show them where I used to live." Right? I mean, all the signs are, no, do not let strangers in your house. But Eve does, because she feels a bit of the guilties, and she lets them in. And as soon as she lets them in, unexplicable, weird shit starts happening in the house, and Eve is kind of terrified. And then, on top of that, her wife Charlie disappears because she's trying to get in touch with Charlie to say there's these weird people in her house and I can't get rid of them. She can't get in touch with Charlie, and Eve is slowly losing her mind. She's like, there is something terribly wrong with this house, or I'm losing all sense of reality. It's a wild ride of psychological horror that brings in the trope of a haunted house, and I utterly loved it. There is also at the start, or is it the end? I think it's the end of each chapter, a little bit of Morse code, and as a reader, you kind of are able to take the notes of what that Morse code is, and then you come out with a sentence at the end. That's all I'm saying. Just keep, if you've got the physical book, keep an eye out for the Morse code, physical or ebook. It's also an interactive in that way. It's also got mixed media in the story as well, which I adore in a book. It is chilling, it's disturbing, it's creepy, it's utterly intense. It's a haunted house story with an absolute twist. It's unique in a good way, and I was utterly gripped. Like, I legit cannot wait for the Netflix adaptation. If you've read this book, let me know in the comments if you figured out the Morse code. Now, last but not least is a haunted house book I have high on my TBR, and I've actually got it out from the library. It's called We Live Here Now by Sarah Pinsborough. So other than the title, the cover, and really liking this author because I've read Insomnia and Behind Her Eyes, highly recommend both as really dark, twisty thrillers. I requested this from the library, and I am going to partially read the synopsis because I know nothing about this other than it sounds a bit haunted housey and I want to read it. After an accident that nearly kills her, Emily and her husband, Freddie, move from London to a beautiful Dartmoor country house called Larkin Lodge. The house is gorgeous, striking, and to Emily, something about it feels deeply wrong. Old boards creak at night, fires extinguish, and books fall from the shelves. All of it stemming from the terrible presence she feels from the third floor room. That sounds like perfect haunted house vibes. It gets really good reviews as far as I can see, and I am absolutely here for it. And so, other than that, I know nothing else, and I don't want to because I want to go in relatively unknowingly into this story. If you've read it, let me know in the comments, and if you have any of your favourite bookish recommendations that are ghosty, witchy, vampire-y, or haunting housey, let me know in the comments. Share them with me and everyone else who's watching. Let's get our bookie season recs ready. And if you give me any recommendations, I'll have a wee nosy, and I might, if you're interested, let me know also in the comments. Would you want to see my spooky season TBR? Because at the moment I'm feeling a little bit anxious that it is overwhelmingly huge and I'll never get through the books, and that spooky season will now need to just go into summer 2027. Oh, 26. Not 2 years away. 26. To be able to read all the books, because there's always so many books that I want. I feel like, oh, it's my season, it's coming, then all the expectation around that, and I'm not getting to the books I want to read. So anyway, do you want me to share those anxieties with you in a seasonal spooky TBR video with me? Let me know, or just keep them to myself and I'll let you know what I read. Let me know if you plan on reading any of these books. And thank you as always for watching, for liking, for commenting. And if you want to watch more recommendation videos from me, as well as some cozy weekend vlogs, please do subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in another bookish video very, very soon. Cheerio!